Okay, guys, today we are looking at writing linear functions from a table. So the goal here is to write the equation of the line with the given slope that goes through the given point. So some things we need to remember before we dive into these four problems here is, how do we find slope from a table again? Remember, we always have an x row or an x column, depending on what the table looks like, if it's vertical or horizontal. And here we have a x row because it's a horizontal table, and we have a y row. I know it says f of x, but remember f of x and y are actually the exact same thing, okay? So to find slope, we need our change in y, which in this case is 6. We get from 14 to 20 by adding 6, and we put it over our change in x, which in this case is 1. We get from 0 to 1 by adding 1. Okay, so our slope here would be change in y over change in x. And for change in y over change in x, our change in y here is 6, and our change in x is 1. And 6 over 1, of course, is 6. So if that's our slope, now all we're missing for an equation is our y-intercept. Okay, now our y-intercept, if we recall, is where my x value is 0, right? We're used to seeing it on a graph where that line crosses the y-axis, okay? Well, that y-axis, my x value is 0, that whole y-axis. So wherever my x value is 0, that's my y-intercept. So my y-intercept in this case is the point 0, 14. Okay, so now we can make an equation. Y equals mx plus b, where m is 6 and b is 14, so y equals 6x plus 14. Okay, that would be my equation of that table. Okay, so let's look at the next one. Again, the first thing we want to find is my change in y. My change in y in this case, to get from 14 to 13, we subtract 1. So my change in y is negative 1. Okay, now my change in x, to get from negative 3 to 0, is you're adding 3. Okay, so we put our change in y over our change in x, and we get a slope of negative 1/3. Okay, change in y over change in x, we get a slope of negative 1/3. Okay, now we have our slope. Now all we need is our y-intercept. To find our y-intercept, again, we want to look where our x value is 0. There it is, right here. So my slope would be negative 1/3, and my y-intercept would be this 13 here, 0, 13 as a coordinate point. Okay, y-intercept is where, my x value is 0. Okay, so my full equation would be y equals mx plus b. In this case, it is y equals negative 1/3 x plus 13. Negative 1/3 x plus 13. Okay, so we've kind of done the same process for both these tables, and it's probably going to be the same process I would like to think that we are understanding at this point for the rest of the tables that we look at. Okay, change in y over change in x, and what is my y-intercept? Okay, so for these next two, let's take a look. Okay, first, I want to find my change in y. I get from negative 36 to negative 26 by adding 10. Okay, I know these are both negative numbers, but to get from a really negative 36, which is pretty far away on our number line, pretty negative, right, to a negative 26, we are adding 10. Okay, to get from negative 12 to negative 8, we are adding 4. Now when we combine those and make our slope, we put our change in y 10 over our change in x 4, and we reduce that. Remember, we are always reducing our slope. 10 over 4 reduces to 5/2. Okay, there's my slope. Now take a second and see if we can't find our y-intercept here. Hopefully, some of us are looking right at this point here where my x value is 0. In this case, it's negative 6 for my y. Where x is 0, my y is negative 6. So my y-intercept is 0, negative 6. Now we just have to put it all together for our equation, and we get y is equal to 5/2 x minus 6. 5/2 x minus 6. Okay, so let's get our last one here. Our last one, we have 100 to 88 for our change in y. To find that, or to get there, to get from 100 to 88, we are subtracting 12. Okay, we are subtracting 12. Now my change in x, to get from negative 1 to 0, just adding 1. Okay, just adding 1. Okay, so my slope, I'm going to put my change in y over my change in x. I get negative 12 over 1, which is equal to just negative 12. Okay, now take a second and see if we can't find our y-intercept. Hopefully you guys said it was right here, 0 and 88. So my y-intercept is the point 0, comma 88, giving me a final equation of y equals negative 12x plus 88. Y equals negative 12x plus 88. Okay, and that is it for today's lesson on writing linear equations from a table.